2021 Planning Board meeting. For this meeting, the Planning Board is convening remotely via the Microsoft Teams app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Meeting materials, supporting materials that have been provided to the members of this body will be shown during this transmission. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. A few ground rules. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comments, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer while you're not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage with each other, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comment, we've established an email address for public comments at danversmass.gov. This email address is shown online with the streaming of this meeting. Residents may email comments and they will be provided read out loud after the staff has confirmed their name and address. All emails must contain the date and phrase planning board meeting in the subject line. Finally, each vote taken this evening will be conducted by a roll call vote. So I just want to make sure that each member of the board can hear me. And if you could say present, please. Peg Zielinski.
Present.
Lou George.
Present.
Tori Adler.
Present.
Jim Steers.
Present.
And from the staff, we've got David Field and
Present.
who are available. Can you folks, you guys can hear us, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Excellent. So the first item on the agenda is 36 Conan Street, request for site plan approval submitted by Ed Scaldoni for property at 36 Conan Street pursuant to section 4 of the zoning bylaw. The property is in the residential 1RI zoning district. The applicant proposes the conversion of the building from a commercial use to residential use and associated site modifications. Assessors map 43, lot 246. Mr. Scaldoni, you have the floor unless someone else is going to present for you.
Sean is going to present first from Griffin Engineering.
Okay, Sean.
Okay, yep. Let me just share my screen here. Okay, can you guys see that?
We can.
Okay. All right, so this is the project at 36 Conan Street. Like you said, it involves converting a existing commercial condo, 4 units, to 4 residential condos. It's located here on Conan Street, in between Central Ave and Conan Street here. There's an aerial photo. Existing building. No changes are really proposed to the outside of the building. It's mostly going to remain the same.
I think they're thieves. They're holding it hostage.
Someone could mute, if you're not speaking, if you could mute your microphone, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Parking situations here. Let's see. We're proposing minor changes to the parking layout. So basically these 4 spots on the east side of the parking lot are going to be removed and converted to green space for snow storage and landscaping. Let's see. Conditions plan here. These are the proposed changes. Basically, we're just installing some curb to replace these 3 spaces. We're removing a total of existing 19 spaces. We're removing it down to 12, so we're removing 7 spaces, 4 on the east side and 3 on the west side here. We're proposing some additional signage. Right now, it's one way in from Conan Street out to Central Ave. We're going to continue to maintain that one-way traffic. We're adding some signage at Conan Street to show that it's one way. And some do not enter signs off Central Ave so people can't come in from Central Ave. We're proposing some minor utility upgrades. The water service will be upgraded as a result of the change in use. The existing 3/4 inch line will be upgraded to 1.5 inches. And we're also going to be proposing to install a fire suppression system per the fire department. And that will require most likely a 4-inch ductile iron line to be installed as well. Let's see. Just some minor landscape changes. The existing areas of bituminous are going to be converted to green space and mulch beds as shown here. Basically just showing some hostas going in on the mulch bed. And this is going to be green space for snow storage. So we'll be able to accommodate snow storage on site. We don't expect that to be an issue. Let's see. Just some additional photos. Are there any questions so far?
No, I mean, if that's the overview, that's fine. So, Tori, why don't we start with you tonight for the first round of questions?
Sure. Yeah, I'm very familiar with this property. I walk past it all the time, talk to some people in the neighborhood. These changes sound very positive and don't create any concerns for me.
Okay. Lou?
Yeah, I agree. I actually walk in this area. I live that far away. And I'm happy to see that in terms of the a reduction in some of the parking spaces that aren't deemed necessary and converting it to vegetation and green space. Is there any issue in terms of with respect to snow storage? Is there going to be any vegetation that will be potentially damaged by snow? How is that going to work?
So we've proposed to put the snow storage on the grass. There's this designated snow storage areas are on grass only, not on the mulch beds. So there shouldn't be an issue there.
Got it. Okay. And I saw that you, in terms of the application package, I saw that you also went before the Board of Appeals. Were there any issues that raised there? Any issues raised by the butters, either at Board of Appeals or even more recently?
We weren't exactly involved in the zoning process. I don't believe there were any issues. Ed might be able to touch on that.
The couple of the issues were they wanted the one way to maintain. Some of the neighbors, it was kind of mixed. Some neighbors liked it going both ways. Some didn't. Some wanted the back entrance to block, but the fire department wants it open. So to solve that problem, we don't want people driving through either. So that's why we're proposing the do not enter signs, and we're going to label one way through there. That was pretty much the biggest concern.
About being a pass-through, for example, is that what the concern was?
The concern, well, the tenants that are there now, they say that they pass through, they come from Central Street and they go on to Conan. So we're trying to prevent that from happening. We don't want it to do that. So I think by making the green space and having the signs there, that would prevent that from happening.
Okay. Got it. Okay. And I also saw, just in terms of the materials, that there was that we did have engineering comments, and it looks like you all did respond. It looks like you responded just in correspondence dated today.
Yes. Yeah. We looked at the comments from the engineering department, and we were able to address all of them pretty much. There was one comment left over. Mr. King responded just before the end of the day today. There was one issue with a small detail of the fire service protection line. It's a minor change, so we were able to address all his comments.
Okay, it sounds good. Mr. Chair, I don't have any further questions. I guess the only concern I would have is just to make sure that all the engineering, all the engineering comments were, have been thoroughly addressed.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yep. Thank you, Peg.
I went down and looked at the site today, and I really don't have any comments. I like the additional landscaping. I do think it's wise to have the one-way, and I like the suggestion of the do not enter sign on one side. These are 3-bedroom condos?
I could address that, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, go right ahead. Yep.
Yeah, the one unit, there's one unit on the top right side as you're looking at that picture will be a 3-bedroom, and the other 3 will be 2-bedroom.
Okay, well, good. I liked the idea of a 3-bedroom. They're very difficult to find 3-bedroom apartments or condos.
Thank
So
you.
I thought that was good. I really don't have any other questions other than, like Lou, I would prefer to see the engineering comments addressed.
Okay. Jim?
I think it's a good, reuse of the building. I don't have any comments. Everything's been pretty much teased out by the previous speakers, so I'm in favor of it.
Okay, I don't have many questions. The only question I have is just for clarification purpose. Exiting the property on Central Street, can you go left and right? My understanding is it's not a one-way street on Central, correct?
All of it is.
That's correct. It's a two-way street.
No, part of it is.
Okay. No, I'm comfortable with the proposal as well. I think this is a great reuse, and additional green spaces is a terrific idea. David, is there anyone from the public that expressed an interest in commenting?
There's Dustin Patterson was here, I believe, if he wants to unmute.
Yes, I hope, can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead, Mr. Patterson.
I just had one major concern on this project. In a lot of projects, there's a 20% requirement for commercial buildings to become ADA compliant. And by going residential, they don't have to do that. But is there some sort of assurance that we can get that they won't go residential, do greater than 20% improvement on the building, and then go back to commercial?
This is Mr. Chairman. Can I address that question?
Go right ahead.
Yeah, this is Ed Childoni. No, we have no intention of going back to commercial. We've gone through this process of having it changed to residential. We spent a lot of time, making this look smooth and fitting it into the neighborhood. So we have no intention, absolutely zero, of going back to commercial.
Thank you for addressing that.
You're welcome, sir.
Any other comments, David, from the public that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of, but there's quite a few.
Right here.
Sounds like Mr. Duggan.
Oh, okay. So go ahead, Matt. You got the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Matthew Duggan, 41 Chase Street. Just a couple of questions and then some comments. So first, on this new plan, I don't see a location for a dumpster. Can you maybe point that out, where the dumpster would be?
Sean, you want to address that?
Yeah, so there are existing trash receptacles on the back of the building currently. I don't think there were plans to put a dumpster in. I think they were individual trash cans along the back of the building here. I think it's proposed to continue that. Is that correct, Ed?
Yes. We've talked to the city, and because it's 4 units, it's not required to have a dumpster. So we were planning on just having the 4 units. They'll each have their own trash bin, and they'll be responsible for taking that out to the appropriate area on trash day.
Okay, so to you, Mr. Chairman, this property has access to town trash pickup? Is that what I'm hearing?
So can someone from the staff address that if they know the answer to that question?
Yeah, they have JRM, the normal pickup like everybody else does.
Okay. So that's 4 units, and if, say, for example, we have 3 trash cans for each unit, 12 trash cans, you know, we have an issue in the back bay today with rats. So that's why I ask about the trash. I'm not sure. So are the 12 trash cans, and I'm just using that as an arbitrary number, could be more, could be less. But so where will they be stored in a kind of a shed-like, area, or are they just going to be laying against this fence here, where I assume they're going to be at the back corner on the map? It's the top right corner.
Just like those. Just like those.
Yeah, that we're anticipating doing the same thing as presently as they use the trash now. We're going to plan on the same thing.
Okay. All right. So there's 4 cans there, and these were for the dental facility, right? Did they have JRM come deliberately to pick these up, or these were taken out to the street, out to the curb?
Sir, I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay. All right. Well, I just bring this up because, like, again, there's an issue with rats, and not just in this area, but throughout town. So anything we can do to kind of alleviate that or try to reduce the situation. Okay, I'm all set for that. Next to the sign. So I think I mentioned early on for this project, that wasn't, I was looking to have the back entrance or the back egress there at Central Street closed off. In terms of the signs, I don't know if that's really inappropriate for this. We're trying to make this more residential looking. Maybe just arrows on the ground would be sufficient. We know that signs don't always fulfill the intent. People don't always pay attention to them. So just a thought, perhaps you could start with the arrows, and then if the residents noticed an issue with people cutting through there the wrong way, maybe at that point you could add the signs. But again, residential area, looking to kind of reduce the sign pollution. And then just one last question. So there's still a significant amount of impervious surface on this property. And I was hoping to see fewer parking spaces, especially along that south side lot line where you have the angle parking today. So are you still committed to having all these parking spaces? It looked like there was at least 12 spaces. Seems like a bit of overkill.
Sean, would you address that, please?
Yeah, so we're reducing the number of spaces from currently 19 down to 12. So we're moving 7 spaces. Basically, there are 1 3-bedroom and 3 2-bedroom units going in here. So the parking requirement is I believe 12 spaces.
Yeah.
Actually 9 spaces plus 3 guest spaces is what we ended up doing. So we're still reducing it from 19 down to 12. So
okay. And then again, about the impervious surface, was there a stormwater management plan drawn up for this project?
Not currently, because typically we're removing impervious surfaces. So we're increasing infiltration by removing impervious surfaces. So generally that's not required.
Okay. Now these gutters that are shown here in this photo here, they just dump out there onto the ground? The gutters there on that corner, that's an example. I think there's probably similar configuration on each corner, but they just dump out onto the ground?
I believe that's the case, yes.
Yeah, and you're going to continue that function?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. All right, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the time.
You're welcome. Mr. Duggan. David, anyone else from the public that has comments for the board?
Not as far as I know, Mr. Chair.
Okay, if that's the case, bring it back to the board to have a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Okay, that was a motion by Peg. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Jim,
All in favor?
Peg,
Yes.
Lou,
Yes.
Tori.
Yes.
And I'm in favor of closing the public hearing. So let me just bring it back to the board. Does the board have any other comments for the applicant based on some of the feedback that we received?
Nope.
Okay, if not, is there a motion to approve the site plan as presented by the applicant?
I can read the motion, John.
Yeah, please do, Jim.
The Danvers Planning Board, date of application, June 2nd, 2021, date of hearing, July 13, 2021, date of decision, July 13, 2021. The Danvers Planning Board approves the site plan submitted for the property at 36 Conan Street, Assessors Map 43, Lot 246, shown on the plan set entitled Site Plan Approval for a Change in Use at 36 Conan Street, prepared by Griffin Engineering Group, dated June 2nd, 2021. This approval is granted with the following waivers. 1, section 4.10.1E, 2, to leave the existing parking spaces that are to remain at the length, width, and angle which they are currently striped. 2, section 4.10.2 C3, request to leave the westerly lot line unchanged where landscaping is required. 3, section 4.10.3, request to leave the existing light fixtures on the building unchanged and to replace the lighted sign in front of the building with an electric lantern. This approval is subject to the following conditions. 1, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, any required utility upgrades, improvements, or installation shall be reviewed by the engineering division. 2, the attached list of general conditions. Any approval of this site plan shall last within 2 years from the grant thereof if construction is not begun by such date.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Peg. Okay, roll call. Tori,
Yes.
Lou,
Yes.
Peg,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
and I'm in favor as well. So good luck to the applicant, and we wish you well.
I want to thank the planning board for their time and for their vote. Thank you very much. We'll do a great job there for you.
Good luck.
Appreciate that.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right, thank you. The next item on the agenda is 200 Commonwealth Avenue, Assessors Map 58, Lot 109. Request for site plan approval submitted by 200 Commonwealth Ave LLC for property at 200 Commonwealth Ave pursuant to Section 4 of the zoning bylaw. The property is in Commercial 3, C3 zoning district. The applicant proposed the construction of a new 61,781 square foot self-storage facility. And I'll turn it over to the applicant. I guess that would be you, Attorney McCann.
Yes, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, thank you. My name is Nancy McCann. I'm here on behalf of the applicant 200 Commonwealth Avenue LLC. With me tonight is the applicant Nick LaFata. Also with me tonight is Scott Cameron, the project engineer, as well as Francesca Schober, the project architect, with Mike Pizzola as well from Design House, the project architect. And we are seeking site plan approval for a new self-storage facility at the property located at 200 Commonwealth Avenue in the C3 zoning district. We have also requested approval of an alternative parking plan in conjunction with the site plan approval. This is the site of the former Leiden Aquatic Center that I'm sure all of the board members are familiar with that facility. It has been vacant for a very long time. The building is in disrepair and it needs to be removed, and a redevelopment of that site is in order. The lot itself is an irregular shape. It's almost a perfect triangle. And it's located in the rear portion of the Liberty Tree Mall area. The applicant acquired the property in June of 2018, and since that time has sought a variety of different options for re-tenanting, redeveloping the property, and looked at a number of different options. And one of those options, the applicant actually conducted a market study to see if there is a need for a self-storage facility. And in fact, there is. His market study indicated that the Danvers area is some 230,000 square feet short of meeting the needs for self-storage in this community. So the irregular shaped lot itself actually suits a self-storage facility well, because as the board has recognized on a number of occasions, a self-storage facility is a low traffic generator and has a very low parking requirement for actual operation. The site, as I mentioned, is irregularly shaped, and a self-storage facility lends itself to being designed, as you'll see from the plans that we have and we've submitted to you. It lends itself to some unique abilities of design that might not be available for a typical C3 zoning use. So it appears to be an excellent reuse of this particular site. In January, we appeared before the Board of Appeals, and the Board of Appeals agreed and granted a use variance for this use, the self-storage use, as shown on the site plan submitted to you for this site. The board also granted some zoning relief with regard to the front and the rear setbacks, which allow the new building to be constructed in the same proximity to the front and rear lot lines as the existing building, and also granted a variance to allow the placement of 2 parking spaces within the front setback. So those zoning variances have been granted. And we proceeded forward with the design of the site and the engineering of this site. And what you have seen in your package and what we'll present to you tonight is a very attractive self-storage building. It's really designed with a commercial look to fit within the neighborhood, which has retail uses and office uses. And it really lends itself to an office building look, and it's really very, very attractive. The footprint is about 15,000 square feet. It's a 4-story building, as you'll see. The site plan package that we submitted to you is very complete. You have a full site plan set with the layout sheets and grading sheets, the architectural site plans and renderings sheets you have received with your application, as well as photometric plans and some very detailed elevation drawings. The site plans set demonstrates compliance with the setback requirements, other than, as I've noted, and granted by the Board of Appeals earlier this year. The building height complies with the C3 zoning district. Lot coverage and impervious surface area are all well below the permitted lot coverage and impervious surface coverage permitted in the C3 zoning district, and our landscaping percentage well exceeds the 30% impervious permitted landscaping. We have also submitted to you a community impact assessment as required under the zoning bylaw, which consists of the stormwater management plan, a visual impact assessment, as well as the traffic and parking report. So you do have all of those parts of this application package for your review. With regard to the operations of the self-storage facility will be 7 days a week. 2 employees will be on site Monday through Saturday, 9:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. On security code access, I should say, is available for those who have tenant space storage space within the building, 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. So if you have code access outside of when the employees will be present, that access is available from 7 a.m. to 9:30 p.m., but not after that. I think at this point, we'll get right to the plans. Scott Cameron, as I indicated, is our project engineer, and he should be able to share his screen, hopefully, or perhaps Director Fields has that available as well.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Danvers staff, and those in attendance tonight. My name is Scott Cameron with the Moore and Cameron Group. Thank you for having us tonight. Mr. Chair, would it be acceptable for me to share my screen?
Yep, go right ahead.
Okay. Are you able to see kind of an aerial view of the neighborhood?
We can, yep.
Perfect, okay. So again, Scott Cameron with the Moore and Cameron Group. We were the civil engineer and land surveyor for the project team. I wanted to start tonight. I'll walk you through the civil plans, but just to give a little bit of context, I kind of borrowed one of Design House images that they prepared, and you'll see more of these later on in their presentation. But just to give you a brief overview of the neighborhood, you can see Comm Ave distinctly running through and bending across this kind of zigzag across the page here. Obviously, you have the mall to the right-hand side. That's the AMC Theater. This is the office building 140 Comm next door. Dick's Sporting Goods here. That's the Ford dealership out back. And then there's a large open grass area behind the building. And you can see the proposed building kind of overlaid on top of this aerial to give you a little bit of context as to the location, size, and shape of the building and the overall neighborhood. But this just to give you a sense of where it fits into the neighborhood. So walking through the civil plan set, the first thing that we did with this project was to conduct the field instrument survey of the boundary of the property and existing conditions. The boundary survey itself determined and confirmed that there's a little over 1 acre of land area on the property, and it has the frontage on Comm Ave. We did survey the utilities that service the property now, as well as the utilities that are located in Comm Ave, which is a private way, believe it or not, a 60-foot wide private way. But there is water, there's a 10-inch water in the street, there's stormwater infrastructure, sanitary sewer infrastructure, and other utilities, electric, communications, and the like. The stormwater actually is located in an easement that others have benefit to that runs along the frontage of the property. This easement is located in this area. If you can see my hand going across the screen. And this actually conveys water from off-site through the property and then continues on off the property. And there's easements on the adjacent properties that have the same conveyance functions for stormwater management. Some of the runoff from the site also goes across Comm Ave and then continues on to the south towards kind of the mall parking area and across the mall. The building itself is situated in the, I guess, the wider end of the wedge-shaped property. It's tucked right up against a wetland resource area. The wetlands have actually kind of grown back and formed back right up against the edge of the building. We did have the wetlands delineated by LEC Environmental and filed a notice of intent application with the Conservation Commission parallel with this application. We're actually reviewing that with them, had one meeting already. We'll be doing meeting them on Thursday to take a look at the project on site. That said, the wetlands wrap around the entire property. This was another constraint we were working with. As you get into the parking area, and this was the parking area for the aquatic center, the wetlands come right up to the edge of pavement. So there really isn't a lot. Everything's kind of come back in and around what was paved or building. There are some small grassed areas. Some of the roof drains dumped out directly to the wetland, or the parking lot catch basins directly out to the wetland. So there was stormwater infrastructure, pipes and conveyances, but it's kind of dated with the age of the building, not really providing any of the modern levels of treatment that we're accustomed to. and I'll get into that in a little bit. As far as circulation, there are 2 curb cuts. You can drive in and out of the property, parking in the middle. And, you know, based on my, you know, my youth when I used to go to the aquatic center, and even when I took my kids shortly before it closed, you know, this was always kind of a busy parking area, especially at peak times. And I think the parking reflects, you know, you can see the shape of it. It's kind of a tricky area to work with. So some of our design goals were to improve the circulation, you know, deal with some of these stormwater related issues, and also deal with the topography of the site, which there is quite a bit of topography going up from about elevation 17 to elevation 23 at the building, 22, 23. And then in the corner here, there's kind of a hole where the stormwater passes through an open area where it drops down to elevation 14. So close to a 9 or 10 foot grade change on the site in a very small property. So we worked through all these in the design. We did include erosion controls, site preparation. That's what this next plan in the set is. This outlines, you know, how we're going to protect catch basins, how we're going to wrap the limit of work, what we're going to do, measures, there's demolition notes, erosion control notes. And so this plan is included. This is an important part of the construction phase of the project. The entire building will be demolished. The foundation, footing, everything will have to be removed. Again, the construction of the building, that type, the building's kind of exhausted its useful life cycle and needs to be replaced. Pavement, everything would be removed from the property. And then in new construction, the new building would be constructed in the same footprint as the existing building. In this plan, the site plan shows in a little more detail and clear. I took out all the topographic information. You can see the building parking in relation to the property line. The variances that were granted gave some relief for the front setbacks here. You can see the building's 23 feet, 24 feet, 23 feet at the front lot line, as well as in the back, 24, 25 feet, close in the back line. But again, we held that existing building shape, and then the new building would extend out into the area that is currently part of the existing parking area. Francesca will get into what this will be used for. But this is the footprint, and we held that. We aren't increasing that any closer to the wetlands. On that side, we're removing quite a bit of the asphalt pavement area in the front of the property. The access itself, there'll be 2 curb cuts. They'd both be 2-directional to allow for some flexibility. There are 11 parking spaces proposed outside, and then there are actually 2 loading spaces inside the building that are large enough to accommodate the box trucks for moving. So in total, 13 spaces on the property. We had a traffic evaluation conducted specifically for the parking on this property by Fleiss and Vanderbrink. Julie Kroll is a professional engineer for them, did an analysis of the parking that would be required for this type of use for the self-storage use. And as you are aware, under the zoning, the parking intensity under the zoning is relatively high. Actually, it's really high, where the parking under the zoning would require for this use about a 45,000 square foot facility, close to 60 parking spaces, 60 north of that actually. But the parking analysis, which is based on the Institute for Transportation Engineering statistical data from a lot of different test sites, indicates that this particular property in a peak demand would only need 5 parking spaces, and that represent your peak period of use for the property. And we're providing 11 surface spaces plus the 2 interior garage spaces. We have kind of a factor of safety of 2, or a little over twice the amount of parking that this project is anticipated to use. It's a very low impact as far as a traffic generator use on the property outside of moving in, moving out. It's relatively benign in between those periods. So we did provide that calculation here, referencing the alternative parking plan provision in the zoning bylaw. as our justification for those 11 spaces. We feel this is more than enough parking for the facility, and we're happy to answer any questions about that. This plan also does include the zoning table here, your building lot coverage, statistics, the landscape area calculations. So there's well over or 3 times the amount of landscaping, that ratio of open area to parking area. The parking impervious footprint, especially with the impervious spaces, is very low. With regards to grading and drainage and utilities on the property, some of the vertical change from the street to the building created some challenges for us in designing this. Of course, we had to hold the existing slab grade of the building, so we're kind of fixed with that. That said, the driveways will come up. This driveway will be a little steeper, whereas this driveway here to the right will be a little flatter. But trying to keep the parking lot grades around 4 or 5%, which is manageable in a parking area, under 2% for the handicap access areas. And then opening this up so there's a wide, about a 10-foot wide walkway all the way up to the main building here from the parking area. And we actually widened that walkway after meeting with Captain Brooks from the fire department to allow easier access for his crews to get to the building in event of an emergency. We also met after meeting with him. We did widen the curb cuts a little bit. He was a little concerned about the access, but this curb cut is big enough to get a truck in, the Danvers fire truck, and back out. And we also made some changes on the front, which Francesca will get into in a little bit in her presentation. But we made some changes. We actually took out a few of the trees, or we took out 3 trees that were proposed in the frontage from the initial submittal. Captain Brooks had expressed concern about being able to access the corners of the building here. If they need to get a crew up or a ladder to get to the building, you wanted to make sure you had access to those points from Com Ave directly to the building. So it did provide some gap in the trees. Still a lot of trees proposed, but we did make those changes in response to the fire department's comments. Stormwater management will be for the parking area, at least where we're concerned about the water quality and treating that runoff. We're going to provide 2 new catch basins. These would be hooded with sumps on them to provide some first flush of stormwater runoff treatment. And then we're going to bring that through a new treatment system, which will provide significantly more treatment of the stormwater. It's called hydrodynamic separation, where it will actually use gravity and centrifugal forces to pull sediment out of the stormwater, and that's what the sediment is, what contains most of the pollution. The pollution kind of adheres to that sediment and the particles in the water. So this will achieve the required water quality treatment of the stormwater runoff, and then that will enter into the existing discharge from the site, and we will actually be replacing an old. The current conveyance, which I mentioned earlier, brings water from off-site across the property, so others benefit from this. It's an older pipe. It's not in great condition, so we're going to replace that pipe with a new high-density polyethylene drainage pipe. So that will, where the existing pipe is kind of at the end of its life cycle, it's probably it's probably collapsed and failed in certain areas. This will be a new pipe, which will give it at least another 60 plus years of useful life. Before it would need to be really considered for any future upgrades. So that's a significant upgrade to the stormwater management system. As you can imagine, there's very little sanitary sewer flow generated from this this type of use. There would be restrooms in the facility, but it's a very low sanitary generator. That means it's also a very low water usage generator. But we would be replacing both the water and the sewer for the facility, and also bringing in a new fire protection line for the utility services, and your, of course, your electric and communications would come in here too. So we detailed that in this plan. And then moving on, I'm not going to get into all the details. I'll skip through those. But you'll find several plans just showing the construction details. I think at this time I'll pass the baton over to Francesca, and she can walk you through the landscaping and building design.
Great. Hi, I'm Francesca Schulberts with Design House Architecture. We're the project architects for the site. Let's see. Scott, do you have a floor plan? We'll go through that first, maybe?
I'll have to
or even a building picture is good. We can do that too. So as Scott mentioned, the existing building is to be demoed. The building footprint does follow the existing building footprint with a minor addition in the southeast corner. That addition allows for interior loading and unloading. This is huge in the world of self-storage. It allows for the users to move their items in and out without having to worry about rain, snow, beating sun, all the elements. We did work as much as we could within the building, the existing footprint shape. The floor plan has, that one's good. The floor plan has an existing, or I'm sorry, a leasing office, which is positioned at the southern corner, looking onto Commonwealth Ave. Yep, right in there. The egress doors have been positioned to have a minimal impact on the existing wetlands on the site. As Scott mentioned, the wetlands kind of crept back in and are now against the building, so we didn't want to disturb that too much and do what we could to preserve that. Fire suppression is also proposed. When we were speaking with fire department, they had asked that we provide an access door to the riser room from the exterior, so we did provide that. As far as the look of the building itself, we wanted a different look. We want this building to blend into the bordering context of the retail and general commercial uses around it. And altering the materials on the building, adding glass, faux awnings, everything just to make the building design fit within the area. The goal is to make this not look like a typical mini storage, typical self-storage building, but to give it more, have a pack a punch. So the other part of that too is to make it have an atmosphere that welcomes people, that you do want to bring your items in there. And it's not a dark and scary place where some storage facilities can come off as that. So if we go to the landscape plan. So as Scott mentioned, we did rearrange some of the trees to accommodate the fire department concerns. We still do meet the required tree and landscape material per ordinance. The project is also improving upon the existing wetlands and natural landscape with new plantings and wildflower restoration areas. The landscape design itself helps to soften the hardscape of the building and the site elements. I believe we are reducing the amount of impervious on site. Scott, stop me if I'm incorrect, but
that's correct. Yep.
Okay. So we did that just by adding more green space. So we're able to put a little more green into the property than what it has right now or before. As far as the building, well, the existing building now is, yes, like I said, is going to be demoed. It's kind of demoing itself as we speak. The project will kind of just clean up this corner and this little bend in the road. As far as how it relates to the surrounding area, we do have a height study, which shows it is, there we go. It is on par with, it's on par with the surrounding buildings, the Dick's Sporting Goods building, the office complex to the southwest, and then the shopping mall across the street there. We do have, the height is 45 feet, and we do have a parapet there that bumps it up to 50 feet. We're still within the height regulations. So I'm happy to answer any building or floor plan related questions. I appreciate you taking the time to run through this with us.
Thank you. I'll just wrap it up to bring us back to the alternative parking plan. Scott went through that with you. The proposed 5 parking spaces for the size building is in keeping with the parking requirements that this board has deemed appropriate and adequate in other recent cases, one just a month ago, and one earlier on back in the 1990s, which was then confirmed again in 2018 When you have much larger storage facilities, those were each over 100,000 square feet of storage. And in both of those cases, the board determined that 13 parking spaces were adequate for those uses. We're proposing for approximately 45,000 square feet of usable storage space within the building, and we're proposing 11 parking spaces plus 2 indoor parking and unloading spaces. So it's certainly a different look. We think it fits very well in the neighborhood. It really makes an attractive statement as opposed to certainly more utilitarian looking self-storage facilities that Danvers does have some of. This is something different, and really is a very nice and unique and attractive looking design. And the development team worked very hard to do that within the constraints of this site, between the wetlands and the irregular shape that we were working with. But we think that this was a significant improvement, obviously, over the existing conditions that we are dealing with now, as well as an enhancement to the neighborhood. We think it will really be an excellent addition. Again, low traffic generator. It'll meet the needs of the self-storage market, as well as being an attractive development of this long vacant site that certainly has challenges to deal with, which we think we've done very successfully with this design. So we would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Peg, why don't we start with you?
Have to unmute first. It is a very interesting building. It does not look like self-storage. I went by the site today and it's just overgrown and a mess. It's a funny shaped lot. I think I'm pretty pleased with this. I'm looking to see if there could possibly be more landscaping, but I understand the constraints due to Lieutenant Brooks's comments. Definitely better looking than what it is now. I think this is also for a location for a storage, self-storage, a good location because you back up to the automobile dealership. And then on the other side, there's wetlands, and then there's the bus storage. So I think it is a good choice for this site. How many storage units did you say there were?
Francesca, do you have a number? That's somewhat market driven, of course. But Francesca, do you have a number for the storage units?
We don't at this time. It is market driven, so we don't like to commit to the exact number of units until we get to working drawings.
I see that you have, I think, 2 bathrooms did I see 2 bathrooms in the plan?
There's actually 3. There's 2 on the first floor, and then per code, there's 1 on the 3rd floor.
Okay. All in all, I really don't have a problem with the project. I think it's, as I said, I think it's a good location for it. And it really is a nice looking building. Did you were you able to address all of the engineering department comments? I didn't see any letter from you people or a letter from.
I couldn't pull that off, and I think we got the letter yesterday. And I just didn't have enough time to get through it, but we will work through that before now and the next time we convene.
Okay. Well, I think it's fine. John?
Okay. Jim, you're next.
Having to drive by this building every day to go to work, this is going to be quite the improvement. I had my scuba diving instruction at the old facility that has sat there for a number of years, and I think this new plan is for a storage facility. It blows me away. I mean, this is the most comprehensive plan I've ever seen for a storage facility. I applaud the applicant's team on that. It's a beautiful looking building. It could be a office building or hotel by the way you present it. And I applaud you on that because we, as was said, we already have a chocolate box in town and we've got some other facilities that really don't lend a lot as far as looks. So this is a nice design. I think it's going to be a great, addition to the mall area that I think in the future is going to undergo some additional changes, based upon, retail space in general. My only questions, are we going with the walnut or chestnut color? Is that what we're looking at there for the color?
Francesca, can you answer that? Is that our color scheme?
That's what we are running with now, unless there is true opposition to that tonight.
As long as you don't make it pink.
I thought you might want orange.
No orange. We got enough orange, please. Let me just ask a couple questions about logistics. So I'm going to come in with my cube van, and I can fit. How big of a vehicle can I fit in those doors, the two spaces, when I come in to get out of the rain?
So it's wide enough for 2 vehicles. It kind of depends on how you're going to park those vehicles. If you're right directly in the middle, you might be only fitting 1, but it is wide enough for 2 vehicles.
So are we anticipating a 10-wheeler? Are we anticipating, I guess, let me start with, are we just primarily marketing to residential homeowner type use, not commercial, or what?
At this point, yes, it looks like it's just residential type uses. Commercial, I don't think would really fit in this, but it would, again, be generated by the market study. I see this being geared more towards residential type use.
Yeah, the reason for my question is if we're going to be putting, if we end up getting commercial use and we have a 18-wheeler backing into the space, maybe have difficulties coming in and backing in with turning radiuses, et cetera, on that heavily used road behind the mall.
Understood. I know that Scott did design it for the fire truck to be able to make that turn on our, I think he's trying to pull up the site plan here. Yeah, to kind of make that loop.
Yeah, so it was designed to accommodate, are you going to get a 67-foot trailer onto this? No, I mean, that's not realistic. It's not what it's designed for. But a smaller, maybe a 35, 40-foot trailer truck would have the ability to come in to the property, pull up, and then back up and either get close to the door or back in. The reason we have 2 entrances here is even if it does partially block the entrance here, there's still another route to get the vehicles out of the facility. The design's really intended, and the intention is for your box trucks. So your small, medium, large box trucks, and those would have no issue getting around this property any different than they would your like a gas station or something like that. It's really not intended for your larger trucks, but it can accommodate some.
And that little island in the middle of the parking plan, is that really just to delineate entrance and exit, or?
Yes, that's right. We didn't want to, there's no sidewalk here, so we weren't too concerned with that. But it was to delineate that in and out. We didn't just want one big kind of open entrance, because then you get people doing other weird things, and it provides some semblance of control in and out of the property.
And so once I back up my rented U-Haul into the big door, is there an elevator, or how do I get to my 4th story storage unit?
Yep, there is an elevator centrally located, so that you would be able to either cart your items from the truck to the elevator or carry. There is an elevator available.
So one set of elevators?
Correct.
Kind of in the middle? Is that what you're showing?
Yep, that's correct.
And will there be an extension of the elevator shaft that protrudes from the roof? Not shown on the plan?
I don't think you can see it in this image, but it is within code. I don't think any of the images actually can show it. It is within the allowable heights.
Okay. All right. That's all I have, John. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Lou?
Yeah, let me just go and echo some of my, Jim and Peg's, points in terms of, I thought this was an excellent presentation. I think that I think the building is definitely is an attractive building, and it definitely be an improvement to the area. And again, as the presentation was very comprehensive. A lot of the questions I had, I was able to tick off as you were going through it. So I just have a couple of sort of follow-up questions, just with respect to the in terms of the use of the property. So it's my understanding this is going to be aimed more towards the residential uses, understanding that it's market driven. There isn't any plan for storage of large vehicles, RVs, boats, etc. on the site. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Okay. In terms of the utilization as well, I know you all did a market study finding that there was underutilization, or I guess there's a need rather.
Right.
Did that take into account some of the the new storage facilities that are going to be that are being built in the near term, or that was sort of looking at the existing uses, and how would what's coming up in the future affect what we have here?
That study did take into consideration some of the newer facilities. It did not take into consideration one that was just approved by this board within the last 6 weeks. However, if you subtract that square footage, and again, that is located on the other side of town, right? So that's going to be drawing a very different market. That's right on the Topsfield line on the northern part of town, and will draw from a different market. But even if you do include that into the study, the market study that we've had done, it still shows that we're about 150,000 square feet of self-storage short in the marketplace. This is going to alleviate that by about 45,000 square feet. So it's not going to solve the whole problem in the marketplace, but it will help in this corridor, and it really is I think a good corridor to hit on, but very different from some of the other storage places that Danvers has that are along Route 1.
Sure. Yep. Okay. Very good. And in terms of the, and I know there were some questions that were asked earlier in terms of the elevator banks, and I was a little confused. Was it one set of elevators, or there will just be one elevator in the building?
It's one elevator in the building.
Okay. So I assume this is a large freight elevator?
It is a large elevator to accommodate this. Based on square footage, kind of back that in to see if additional elevators are needed. For this one, we've determined one is sufficient. Okay,
got it. And in terms of the parking spaces, I'm supportive of the alternative parking plan. I think that's there's in terms of identifying the sort of I think your peak demand of spaces, I think, was 5 spaces, and so having 11 I think makes I think that makes sense. I think there's no need to have more than what you need. Again, I'm in support of this. I don't have any further questions. I think it looks like a nice plan.
Okay, thanks, Lou. Tori?
Overall, I'm pretty impressed. This is the nicest proposal for a storage facility I've ever seen. It does not have a lot of the features that I'm used to seeing in a storage facility, and that, as some others have said, this seems like this is geared toward the homeowner. There are no external drive-up loading bays for individual units. Only the one elevator. So this is sort of a smaller scale. What will the largest units be in here?
Typically, a largest unit for this size building would be a 10 by 30, but I don't see there should be very many of those.
And if there's a pair of trucks in the loading bay, is there another door where somebody would be able to comfortably load? It's not clear to me where that would be.
There is. There would be, I think there's 2 or 3. There are 2 other doors that you could.
Okay.
Yep, there we go. There's 2 other doors that you'd be able to cart your things into.
Overall, I hadn't been to Leiden Center since it was operational, and went by the other day, and it is evident that the building is destroying itself, and something has to happen. Question for David: what kind of purview does Preservation Commission have on these wetlands, and where does their purview meet ours?
The Conservation Commission? Is that what you're?
Yeah.
Yeah. For the wetlands, they've already filed, as Scott has mentioned before. Realistically, for your site plan, the wetlands don't really have any bearing on it necessarily, specifically on this site, and that the footprint of the building is already where it is. So, if they proposed this footprint and nothing was there, that might be a different situation. But given that the rear and the side are staying where the existing footprint is, there's not much to be said for site planning purposes.
All right.
They still have to file, it's obviously jurisdictional for conservation, but they're going through that now.
All right. I don't have any more questions. This looks good to me.
Okay, thanks, Dory. Most of my questions, and I want to compliment the architecture of this particular facility. I have not seen a self-storage facility like this as well. So my question is there a prototype of what you've built before? Did you take this and build this in another community, or is this being first time this style being proposed in the marketplace?
We have done similar projects of this style and complexity of the design. And it does, I think that what most cities love and what the citizens really love is that it doesn't look like a self-storage facility. It looks like an office building. It is something that you don't mind driving by every day. So we have done similar projects, and it's always taken pretty well.
Just for the benefit of the folks who are listening to the meeting as well, can you just explain maybe the applicant, their background in self-storage, how this is going to be managed, what's going to be restrictive uses of storage? I think it's important to understand what the terms of what people can store and cannot store. And like we talked about last time, I know there's a trend where wine is starting to be stored in self-storage. Is that part of the market study plan that was put in place?
No, the wine storage was certainly not part of the market plan for this particular site. And obviously hazardous materials can't be stored in the facility. This is really going to be directed toward homeowner type of use. But Mick Lafata is on the call, I believe. And Mick, if you want to chime in on your experience on storage facilities.
Sure.
That might be helpful.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you very much for listening to our project tonight. My background recently in the last decade has been, I built the Middleton Industrial Park and the Riverview Industrial Park, and it's mainly industrial bays, 14-foot garage doors, 2,000 square foot units. We have a waiting list, super long for people going in there. And when I bought this property, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with it. I just know I really liked the location. I knew the building was going to have to come down. And I looked at several different ideas and several different businesses to go in there. But it became difficult because of the shape of the lot. So about a year ago, I came up with this idea of doing the self-storage. We do a lot of management of our own properties right now on the North Shore. And my son currently works for a big box store for the past 9 months as a manager. And he's going to come in here and we are going to make this a family owned and operated business. Right now, we're going to have it under Danvers storage. It's not going to be a big box store. We're going to change. We want to run this a little bit differently. I have a couple of friends who have their own self-storage facilities that do not go outside and have the franchise tags, and they do very, very well. And we're looking for long-term customers, long-term tenants, and we want to make it as attractive as possible. As when people come into the lobby, they can sit down, they can have coffee. We're going to have a conference room there if they want to use it and sit down with their laptop and just make it a little bit of a different concept.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hours of operation, did we touch upon that? How long this is, what the hours are going to be?
Yes, I'll go through that again. There will be employees, 2 employees present typically, Monday through Saturday, 9:30 to 6.
Okay.
The facility will be available through code access outside of those hours from 7 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. 7 days a week. But 9:30 p.m. would be the latest.
Okay, thank you. And then as far as Commonwealth Ave, is Commonwealth Ave a private street, and who's responsible for maintenance?
I believe it is a private way, and I believe that it's maintained by through the shopping center.
That's correct.
So is this parcel part of a association that supports the maintenance of it, or is it purely the responsibility of the Liberty Tree Mall owners?
It is not part of an association, and it would be the responsibility of Liberty Tree. And I believe Director Fields may, if you have other information on that, but that's my understanding.
Yep, no, that's right. It's Simon's responsibility. They recently did some repaving work down there, but obviously not the entirety of the way.
So that's really the gist of my question, David. I mean, obviously we have a new landowner here that, other people that there's a ton of traffic that come in and out. I mean, what responsibility should the Simons focus on making sure that the access is well maintained?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, John. I mean, it's not public, so the town, we can't go out there and do it, and there's not much we can do to coerce Simon to do it. And it's laid out on their site and entirely on their parcels, so it is a tough situation. And
well, especially with retail under a lot of pressure.
Right.
Right. Hopefully, the conditions of the roads won't deteriorate. We had at one end of the entrance to the mall.
Yeah.
Okay, I just, I know that's not the applicant. Well, to some extent, it's the applicant's concern, because I would assume the applicant would want their customers to have good access to their property.
Yes, I think that's very true. If Mr. Chairman, if I could just go back, we did have comments from the engineering department. They did just come in yesterday. However, I believe, Scott, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe those comments are all very technical in nature that we could work out with the engineering department if the board were inclined to grant the approval tonight. We would take a condition that we would work through those technical comments. There was nothing of any particular surprise. They were just very technical items.
Okay. That's all I have for questions. David, did anyone in the public want to comment on this application?
I didn't receive anything specifically for this project, but there are other folks here. If anyone would like to speak up.
Okay.
No, doesn't seem like it.
Okay. If there's no comments from the public, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
Second by Peg. Okay, roll call vote. Jim?
Yes.
Peg?
Yes.
Lou?
Yes.
Tori?
Yes.
And I'm in favor as well. So why don't I bring it back to the board? Anyone on the board have any comments based upon the conversation we just recently have?
Nope.
Nope.
If not, Jim, do you mind reading the motion in again?
Sure. Site plan approval, 200 Commonwealth Avenue. Date of application, June 2nd, 2021. Date of hearing and decision, July 13th, 2021. The Danvers Planning Board approves the site plan submitted for a property at 200 Commonwealth Avenue, Assessors Map 58, Lot 109, shown on the plan set titled Site plan of land in Danvers, Massachusetts, 200 Commonwealth Avenue, prepared by the Moore and Cameron Group, dated May 26, 2021. This approval is granted with the following waivers. 1, section 4.8.2, request to submit a plan sheet showing grading, drainage, and utilities. 2, section 4.9.1, request to submit a parking study in lieu of a traffic study. This approval is subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant is required to file a stormwater permit with the town engineer and to comply with the design specifications of the town engineer with respect to changes to stormwater infrastructure. 2, the applicant is required to file a water and sewer connection permit and to comply with the design specifications of the town engineer with respect to changes to water and sewer infrastructure prior to filing a demolition permit. 3, the attached list of general conditions. Any approval of this site plan shall lapse within 2 years from the grant thereof if construction has not begun by such date.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second.
Mr. Chairman, could I just ask a question? Could that motion also include approval of the alternative parking plan?
Jim?
As amended, add section 4, approval of the alternative parking plan as proposed.
All right, are we talking about also having the applicant resolve any outstanding engineering issues as part of this motion?
And all engineering concerns shall be addressed as part of this motion.
Okay.
We'll call that section 5.
Okay, so Lou, you second that motion,
Yes.
correct? Okay,
Yes,
so
second.
let's roll call. Tori?
Yes.
Peg?
Yes.
Lou?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
And I'm in favor as well. So good luck to the applicant. It's nice to see a family business come into Danvers like this. Good luck. I like your design.
Good luck.
Thank you, and
Yep,
thank
good
you
luck.
very much, and we appreciate your compliments on the design. I'm sure our project engineer and architect appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Okay, so the last item on the agenda tonight is Hobart Street, Maple Street, North Putnam Street, former Hut Wat property, another informal presentation on the proposed Maple Square project. So Attorney McCann, I'll turn it to you and you can lead us through a conversation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Again, my name is Nancy McCann. I'm here on behalf of the Georgetown Capital and AAN 15 Development Group. With me tonight is David Massey, Nick Fay, Megan Thayer, and Tony Libero from the development team. Also with me tonight is Scott Cameron, the project engineer, and Joe Titone, and I believe Annie Raftery is also here from the project engineering office. And thank you again. This is our second informal meeting with the planning board to discuss the redevelopment of what we'll call the Lee Hot Wat industrial properties, which is a compilation of 12 lots into a mixed-use development consisting of multifamily, retail, and a commercial space, a restaurant space, and a dedicated reuse of the historic freight house, all as part of the proposed concept plan. We had our first informal meeting with the board in May, and we had a site walk through the area yesterday. It was a little damp, but I think it was very informative and really put into perspective the existing conditions of this historic industrial area, and as well as the benefits to the neighborhood that are going to come from this redevelopment and really a rebirth of this section of Danvers. We've also done quite a bit more with regard to getting to where we are with the concept plans. We've had 2 TRC meetings. We've had numerous staff meetings with the planning staff, with Director Fields and Director Henry, as well as with the town manager. We've met with the Affordable Housing Trust because, as the board is aware, the residential component of this development requires 20% affordable units, which is a significant impact on the affordable housing stock for the town. We've had a neighborhood meeting. The development team has met with Rotary and other business leaders at the Y to really get input from different aspects of the community as we're pulling together this concept plan. And what you'll see tonight are the results of those comments that we've heard, and specifically, you're going to see changes that were made to the concept plan from our first informational meeting that we had with the planning board back in May. There have been some significant changes that really address the concerns that we've heard. And those our project engineers is going to walk you through. But our goal tonight is really to discuss with you as the primary permitting board for this project, whether you like this concept plan. Is this a plan that you feel you can support and you feel is approvable? Because the next step that the development team has to take is a significant one, as far as getting plans in shape to meet the requirements of the 40R and the Maple Street zoning district. And we want to know at this point, as best you can tell us, with how you feel about the concept plan, so that we know that we're moving in the right direction and in an approvable direction for this project. An important component of I think the board's deliberation and consideration of the concept plan is understanding who the developer and who the development team is. And this is, as you saw yesterday during the site walk, it's a challenging site. It's a challenging site from a site development standpoint. It's challenging to deal with the buildings that are there. There's environmental concerns. There are massive buildings that have to be removed before we even get to the development that will result in a beautiful residential mixed-use site that's going to be very appealing and add a lot of green space. But it's important for you to know who the development team is and to understand the background that they have in this type of a project. So what I'd like to do take a few moments to have David Massey tell you about the development team, about his and the team's experience in handling and successfully bringing a development like this to fruition. So David, if you are available, which I know you are, if you could give a few words.
Thank you, Nancy. I'm David Massey. I was a former banker for 19 years before I became a developer. At the bank that was last at was Boston Private Bank. Just to let you know my responsibilities there, I was the environmental officer, I was the head of commercial real estate, and I was the construction officer. So I've done everything from parking garages to marinas to golf courses to apartments, retail, and office as a lender. I was a collection specialist at a couple banks that I worked at before I joined Boston Private Bank. So I've done every part of taking over assets, cleaning up assets as a banker. Those skills allowed me to go into development in 2006 and start a company with a few other principals and start doing development. We did 4 ground up projects right out of the gate and 1 value add project. We morphed into a multifamily company, and we went down and we did 18 complexes. And these are large complexes, 250 units to 350 units. 8 of them were ground up out of 18 projects for 5,000 units. All the projects were Class A projects with saline pools, with state-of-the-art fitness centers, except for 1 project, which was a value add project that was a C property that we brought up to a B plus property. We've done a lot of environmental work. So I've done 60 investments since I left the bank, 60 different investments. And we've done over 20 ground up projects. I think it was 24 ground up projects right from the ground up. The average size of each of those investments was right 25 million to 28 million, in that range. This is a project that's right in my wheelhouse, in my team's wheelhouse. We pre-COVID, we had about 800 employees working for the company. We're a little bit less than that now, but we're ramping back up to over 800 again. I also own 10 hotels. 2 of them we built ground up. One, if you want to look at it, is in Burlington. It's behind the Burlington Mall. It's in the district. That was a ground up project that we did. And then we did another project, which I'll talk a little bit more about, in Manchester, New Hampshire. It was very severely environmentally contaminated. It had oil and it had dry cleaning solvents in it that were 7 figures to clean up. We took an area that had a couple commercial buildings on it and a dry cleaner and a vacant lot, and turned it into a Marriott Residence Inn hotel, and transformed that whole area, similar to what I'd like to do in Danvers, transform that area into a top-notch apartment and retail complex in that area. So that project was close to $2 million in total environmental between the oil and the dry cleaning solvents. We did another project down in Rentham, Mass. That was a 60-year-old gas station that had everything imaginable with it. It had lead in the property. It had all kinds of different chemicals. It was an aquifer zone for the town of Rentham. Over a 2-year period, we turned it around to a tier 1 zone, which is the testing of it now is drinking water. It meets the drinking water standard. So, I think we can do a great job here in taking this property and making sure that we'll bring it to the highest level we can. My team is deep. My bench is deep. We have in-house construction oversight. We have maintenance oversight in-house. We manage everything we have. All the properties that we have, we self-manage everything. We get great insurance policies. We have insurance experts. Tony's on the phone now. He's the CFO of the company and COO of the company. Nick Fay's on the line today, and Nick Fay is really the project manager for here and a partner of Georgetown Capital. And this is right down his alley as well. He was with me at Panther for 15 years, and I brought him over when I started another company. Panther was named, was a multifamily company named after the Beverly High School Panthers. I graduated from Beverly High School. AM15 is my daughter's initials. And Georgetown Capital, I used to live in Georgetown before I just moved to Ipswich. So just to give you an idea where the names come from. I try to make it simple. I grew up on the North Shore my whole life. I lived in 7 different cities on the North Shore, from Peabody, Salem, Beverly, Danvers, Topsfield, Georgetown, and now Ipswich. So I've been here since I got out of college. I went to Salem State College. I went to North Shore Community College. So I'm pretty local. And I've done about $1.4 billion in commercial real estate since I left the bank. And I feel that we have the top-notch team to make this in the city and the town proud of this project. So.
Thank you, David. If you have any questions for David, I'm sure he would be happy to answer those. Otherwise, we will move on to have our project engineer go through the plan and specifically point out some of the changes that we've made in response to the comments that we had heard during our various meetings, but most specifically the comments that we heard from the planning board during our May informal meeting. So Scott, if you're prepared.
Scott, 1 second. I just want to point out that Megan's on the line too, and Megan's been working hard on this project and really hard about different parts of the project. And I want to give her full credit for all the work she's been doing here. So I apologize, Megan, that I was, but just want to mention that. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, good evening. Thank you for having us tonight. Staff as well. Scott Cameron with Moore & Cameron Group. Would it be acceptable for me to share my screen?
Go right ahead. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you. Just want to hear when you can see that. It should be a site plan.
Yep.
Okay. We'll zoom in. This is what you saw back in May. This is the original design. I just wanted to refresh your memory a little bit as to what we were looking at that time. We had the retail building on the corner. We had the mixed-use L-shaped building with a commercial ground level end cap here with an outdoor seating area for a small cafe restaurant type of use with the residential above, 120 apartment units. Access coming from both Maple Street and Hobart Street from 2 curb cuts, a big consolidation from the vast amount of curb cuts that are on the property now. And then across the street, developing most of the property with the freight station for parking and access on that property. Since then and now, David and his team, Nick, have put together a contract to acquire 11 Hobart Street, which I highlighted here in pink. This was a significant add to the project development footprint in that you can see it really did square off considerably the kind of the campus that we have to work with. So what did that actually mean for the project? I think what it meant is it helped with a lot of the comments, alleviate a lot of the comments we heard from your board at the last meeting. I guess starting with the corner building, more or less that stayed where it was. That was kind of the anchor, and everything was pulled and expanded further away from that. So notably, the building itself was shifted to the plan left, and that allowed for more openness and some more landscaping inside the parking area, some more landscape islands, ability for screening and breaking up the pavement. It also freed up some of the parking spaces so we could add another commercial end cap. This would be another ground level. It's about a 2,000 square foot space on the Hobart Street side with a large outside kind of raised pavilion seating area in this location. We also notably added a large, we were able to make a wide parkway, just a little under 15,000 square feet along the side of the building, and instead of what was before, it was kind of an alley on the lower half coming up the Hobart. So big, wide, open green area. We're showing a kind of a sinuous path going through here, but you can use your imagination as far as what that canvas could look like. We also made some significant changes to the freight parcel, the freight station parcel. Joe was the architect, and Megan and I met on the property a few weeks ago, and we took a closer look at the building and started envisioning what we could do with this and trying to restore some of the train station loading platform aesthetics and a more modern feel to it. So we envisioned a raised kind of pavilion to make up the we can't really move the building, and the first floor sits about 3 feet above the ground. So in order to make use of that for something, commercial or public restrooms or a combination thereof, we need to get some sort of usable space at that level. So a handicap accessible pavilion, which could be used for a number of things, more outside seating, cafe, ice cream shop, something of that nature. And then a wraparound to the front side of the building and adding maybe some sort of a platform with more access, maybe look more like a train station platform from back in the day that would interface directly with the rail trail here, and also, alleviate some of the, the property line is kind of overgrown. There's a chain link fence. It's not very inviting between the two properties. So really opening that up and making it more of a sinuous connection. And really with the changes, I just wanted to highlight, I did, the red's a little, you can see the red, but the red is the original design. And the black was the prior, and you can see notably the park, the bigger park. You can see shifting of the building over, allowing more room here. We've taken the access ramp down to the underground parking, shifted it back away from the street. That also moved the solid waste door away from the street, so that created more space there, more screening and buffering from the street, so that you really wouldn't see that from Hobart Street with what would happen between there with that width. And then I added some color just to give more comparisons between these two. This was the prior plan. The green would be kind of your perimeter public walking routes, so your kind of linear routes around and along the streets. would be the darker green. So these would be more a modernized streetscape with parallel parking spaces, sidewalks, handicap accessible sidewalks, routes, and then landscaping, trees, uniform streetscape, landscaping features. And then you had the cafe here compared to the new design where you can see there's a lot more. The purple is these outside kind of semi-public spaces that would be for outside seating or other outdoor amenities that would work with the commercial tenants or again, if there's a public restroom component to the freight building, work with that. You can see the lighter green here, that park space is significantly wider and larger in opening, and it is behind, on this plan, it kind of looks behind the building, but I think I mentioned at the last meeting, this parkway is really closer to the middle of the district itself. So, so what we're envisioning is as the rest of the district continues to maybe develop in the with the goals of the district master plan, this would be kind of a beltway in the middle of it to provide connections between Hobart, North Putnam, for the residents of the neighborhood and people coming from outside that might just want a route to walk through. And it's also not running straight through the middle of particularly this site. So by keeping it on the edge, it's going to be more welcome and open and feel more like a public space rather than you're kind of walking into, maybe the retail area or the residential area. So we feel it's a really good spot for that park, and it also gets it off of kind of the main noisier vehicular intersection here and pulls that pedestrian and foot traffic, interfaces it with the trail, and gets it into it's a much more pleasant experience in that area. It's quieter, and I think with these upgrades, it's a significant improvement, even over the prior plan. And then again, this is just another snapshot of the total real estate. You can see the black line outline. You can see it's much more square. So from the original, the 9 and 11 Hobart Street were both added on to the Lee Hutwad real estate to really square this off. It makes it a really nice canvas to work with. And in total, the total lot area now with all the parcels is 3.398. And based on the density, it's about 122 units with that real estate area. That's based on the assessed areas. We're in the process of conducting the boundary survey on the property, so we'll be looking to confirm the area, the real estate by field instrument survey. But of course, with the 120 units proposed with the buildings, the land area is certainly there for that. And I think I'm not going to go through the zoning, but I did update this was just a plan that we presented showing kind of the zoning parameters of the project with the setbacks. But again, with the addition of that parcel, everything's I feel it's breathing a lot better. It feels a lot better. There's a lot more green and open space for the project. So I think that wraps up the kind of the technical presentation piece. I can turn it back to Nancy.
Thank you. Again, we've made some significant changes to the concept plan since our last meeting in May. Just to summarize, we have a residential building with 122 units, 20% affordable. We have about a 13,000 square foot retail anchor tenant with a pickup window component, which is shown on the plan. We have a restaurant of about 4,000 square feet with an outdoor dining patio area. We have a small commercial space at the other end on Hobart Street with some outdoor seating area, a good size area there. We're proposing a reuse of the freight house building. We've got various options that we're looking at there, but it would be a use that's going to blend well with the pedestrian component and pedestrian centric type of design that we have really come about with this process. And again, the Freight House is right up against the rail trail, which will allow us to integrate the rail trail into the Freight House and into the new park space that then connects to North Putnam. If we look at the intent of the Maple Street Traditional Neighborhood Development Smart Growth Overlay District, that's a really big name for a district, but the 40R district, we think we really hit the intent of that district. As outlined, we're increasing the supply and the diversity of housing while meeting existing and anticipated housing needs. We're providing an opportunity for residential, commercial, and mixed-use development within a distinctive, attractive, and livable environment. It's pedestrian-friendly, and that's something that we've really spent a lot of time on, and I think you saw it walking in the neighborhood yesterday, that intersection area is not so pedestrian-friendly, but you move a little ways down Hobart Street and you bring in the Freight House and the rail trail and the new park over to North Putnam. That's very pedestrian friendly and very attractive if you can envision it. And standing there, I think we were all able to look and stand on North Putnam Street and say, my goodness, we can look all the way through to Hobart Street once this is completed, with beautiful landscaping associated with that. We have a context-sensitive design and creative site planning. We meet that requirement and ensure predictable, fair, and cost-effective development review. Well, that's what we're doing now with this pre-filing, informative, informal meetings with you and with planning staff and with the fire department. And the TRC meetings that we've had is all to bring that around so that when we do get to our ultimate filing package, we can move through the process in a cost-effective but a fair and a predictable manner, as the bylaw intends. Certainly, it's going to generate positive tax revenues for this area, but more importantly, it's going to generate a better neighborhood feel for this area over what we all saw when we walked around yesterday, and what you as board members have known for years in anticipation of this district. So, and of course, with being a 40R, the town realizes the density bonus payments and the incentive payments that are all part of the 40R Smart Growth Initiative. So those, what I've just been citing from, are the intents that are listed in the bylaw for this particular zoning district, and I think we've really been able to accomplish what the goals and the intents of the bylaw are. So we're looking again for some guidance as far as how you feel about what you've seen. Is this something that you feel we have worked very hard and we're in the right direction, and we have now before you, obviously subject to some significant engineering, as Scott mentioned, we've got to do survey work right off the bat, but to meet the specifics of the requirements of the bylaw, we've got work to do as we move toward filing. But is the concept plan something that this board can support, so that we can proceed forward to the next step? As I indicated in our first informational informal meeting, this project will require special permits. It will require waivers, and it will require potentially some other forms of permitting relief. And we are in the process of working with planning staff to look at that, to look at what should this concept go forward, what the permitting path is, and what specific special permits, waivers, potential variances we might be looking for. So we're mindful of that, but we'd like to hear from the planning board tonight how you feel about what you saw and what you're seeing in these plans. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before I turn it over to the board, Attorney McCann, can you just, I think yesterday someone told me there was a neighborhood meeting that you guys conducted as well. Can you just confirm that and who was invited?
Yes, we did have a neighborhood meeting. We had about 40 people that were invited, and the invitation list was basically the standard zoning 300-foot radius kind of thing around the development site.
Okay.
And we had that back, I believe it was back in April, May. At the same time, we were meeting with the Affordable Housing Trust that same week, I think. And we had a Zoom meeting, and there were about 40. We reached out really to those folks who are under standard zoning provisions, neighbors. So it was that group of about 300 foot.
Okay, that's helpful. Jim, I know you had a conflict. Your schedule didn't allow you to do that walk. So why don't we give you the first opportunity to ask questions, since the rest of us had an opportunity yesterday to at least see this plan for the first time.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was unable to make that, but I am very familiar with the area, having had my hair cut by Jack Rakup for many years and getting subs at Betty Ann's. I'm very familiar. And I've had to do an industrial zoning survey years ago when we started studying industrial 1 and 2. So I'm familiar with it. And I think that this project presents a great opportunity for the town. I like it. And I did have a question on the parkway with respect to fencing. Will there be fencing on both sides, Scott? I mean, as to the abutting neighbors, I could understand. I mean, I couldn't make it out on the plan. And will there be maybe a shorter fence as it relates to the housing, so that people might be sitting out on their patio or deck or what have you? Is there going to be a fenced area between that strip of land?
Yeah, it's a great question. The houses that are not part of it next door, I believe they both have fences along their sidelines already, and I would expect that those would remain as their fences. And the way the project flows, whether there's going to be private ground level kind of patio space on for the tenants of the building, I can't say yet. It's too early in the planning process to make that call. Maybe there are, maybe there aren't, but the idea is that the park's going to kind of flow right up against the building, so it's going to be one open area through there. So there wouldn't necessarily be a need for a fence, because I think that would just kind of constrain the area more than it is now. So we have some flexibility through that, though.
Yeah, I'm just concerned with, if you do essentially are inviting public access, if I'm going to invest in a unit or be a tenant, am I going to want to be right up against it? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to be able to buffer them or protect them?
As an example, we just opened a development up in Newburyport at the train station, and that was a very pedestrian centric, on a rail trail, 40R district, in fact. And we have walkways and amenities and ground level access right up against apartments there. And I believe last I heard they had 100% occupancy already with a wait list, and they just opened 2 months ago. So, is there a particular type of tenant who doesn't want to be in the first floor? Sure. I think it's certainly something that David and his team need to consider in the planning of what those ground level uses are going to be. And certainly as we get into the next level of design on designing that parkway, these things need to be considered.
Okay. That's all I had off the cuff, John. Thank you.
Peg, you were the board chair that led us through this whole rezoning process. So why don't you kind of give the folks that are listening, your viewpoint of this particular project.
I'm
Or
extremely
whatever questions you have for the applicant.
okay. I'm very, very pleased with the changes that you've made. I think this project meets the goals of what we were planning when we put in the overlay, what we wanted to see there. I definitely like the parkway. I was just thinking about if I knew of any places where the rail trail abutted up to property, and there is a fence, I believe, at those Hobart Street condos, but you know, I'm not so sure about what's needed with ground level patios or whatever. The one thing that I would be curious to see as you move along is the designs of the units and the big store. And I'm very happy that you're considering, you're talking to the three commercial entities that are there now, Pete's, the sub shop and the corner grocery. You know, they've been there for a long time and they're mainstays for a lot of people. Like the idea of the bathrooms in the freight house. I walk that rail trail a lot. I think they'll be a nice addition. So I guess I would just say my feelings are move on. Do you have any idea of a timetable? If you can go through your whole process, when do you think you will actually start, be able to have something together that would be presented to the general public?
I think we are probably looking at a filing sometime in early to mid-fall.
Okay. No, I'm very, very pleased with it. Very, very pleased with the changes and how well you have worked with the planning board and the people of the planning board and answering our questions and taking into account our concerns, what we would like to see. I appreciate that. So thanks. I think it's great.
Okay.
I'm pleased.
Lou?
Yeah, I just want to, echo the, thoughts in terms of, and from walking the site, yesterday, as well as I think, looking at the revised plan, I think it definitely addressed some of my concerns that I had at the last, meeting. In particular, I think expanding the open space, I think, is terrific. So you don't have that sort of alley. I mean, one of the concerns I had was that potentially you could almost be, that the space was so tucked in the back that just the whole matter of having the openness, getting to the rail trail. I think you've really done a much better job in terms of, with the addition of the additional parcel, stretching things out a little better, and then also thinking about a use too for the freight house. In Danvers we do not have a lot of those sort of vestiges of our railroad days are you don't see very many of them anymore. And so I think that to the extent that we can incorporate it, along with the close proximity to the rail trail, I think was very is very good. And I think also the addition of the additional retail on the corner, I think was very I appreciate it as well. So I think it definitely is. It's improved for sure. And I do like the fact also the willingness to also to speak with the existing retail tenants, Betty Ann's, the corner grocery, just to see if there's to have conversations with them, I think would be is good as well. The only I guess question I had, I guess this might be is in terms of the density of the residential uses. I think that was something I raised at the last meeting, and I'm not, again, I'm just wanting to see where it falls in terms of density compared to the overlay.
The overlay bylaw itself deals with density in a couple of different ways.
Okay.
So it deals with density that's permitted by right based on units per acre, and density by special permit based on units per acre. And then there is an overall district-wide number of new units, which is 211 new units permitted district-wide, so over the entire 40R. And then there are provisions within the bylaw for maximum density in each subdistrict, of which there are 3. And so as this has evolved, we've had a number of different unit counts and a number of we've added in areas, different lots have been added in, most recently 11 Hobart Street into the mix. So we're at a point where now we're looking at, it looks like our density as units per acre by special permit is looking good. The overall density for the district is looking fine. The density for the sub-district, for the core district, we need to look at that, whether that needs some zoning relief associated with that, because interestingly, the bylaw is inconsistent as it relates to units per acre permitted by right, comes up with the sub-district maximum, but it does not account for the units permitted by special permit. Okay, so there's some different balancing we have to do, and we may need a special permit here or there to address that. And that in our next step, we'll be meeting with staff, which we have scheduled, to really go through that point, as well as the other point that really jumps out is our permitting of the pickup window that we've discussed, which is really a pickup window without a menu board and without all of those things that you might think of as a drive-through window. So how do we deal with that from a permitting standpoint? So those are 2 items that we'll be dealing with, among others, with staff when we really start getting into what permits we need, because there is some inconsistency there with as how density is dealt with in the 40R district and the sub-district. So we're mindful of that, and that's the next step. Now that we get to a concept and we have the number of units, how do we permit that?
Okay, got it. Thank you. And in terms of in terms of sort of the pickup window, how does that work in terms of the I'm not sure if you can maybe explain a bit in terms of just the traffic flow, because I know I had a bit of a concern in terms of queuing up of traffic. Is this going to be this is not going to be a high street Dunkin' Donuts sort of situation, but
that's right. That's exactly right. This is a true pickup window where anything that is being picked up is ordered either by phone or online in advance. So it's not something that you drive up and you see a menu board and you place your order and then you move on to the pickup window. It is not that. It is truly a pickup for something that has already been ordered, akin to curbside pickup that we've all become very used to in this last year, unfortunately, or year and a half. But it's very the retail use is just that, a pickup window that will be a very low generator, probably in the nature of 2 to 3 vehicle queue maximum. You're probably looking at 5 vehicles an hour at the most. You might see this at the other end of the corridor. There is a bank and a pharmacy at the other end of High Street before you get to Route 128 that's tucked in the back that nobody even knows is there. And there's 2 pickup windows back serving that particular building. So it would be that type of use. We are in the process of obtaining a traffic study that will address this specifically through a traffic engineer's perspective. And that would certainly, of course, be part of the application package. But as Scott has just put up on the screen, you can see a queue of 3 vehicles to the pickup window, which would be the maximum that we would anticipate at any time. Doesn't go beyond the end of the building. And that's tucked behind the building, so it really wouldn't be be visible. It's well screened, so that pickup window, you wouldn't see it from Maple Street. You wouldn't see the cars that 1, 2, or 3 that might be queued there would be completely hidden behind the building. And given the landscaping that's proposed along Hobart Street, you're not going to see those that are queued there either.
Okay. That's great. Thank you. And I guess the only, and I know I touched upon it just a moment ago, but in terms of discussions you've had with the, with the existing, the tenants who are in the area, can you give just sort of an update in terms of sort of what's taken place at all?
I believe Nick is on this call, and he has had those, Nick Fay has had those conversations. And Nick, would you like to give that update?
Sure. I spoke with Nick Fay, Georgetown Capital. Happy to be on with you guys. Good to see you. I spoke with Pete. I'm thinking probably last month. I just reached out to him. We're kind of in between, right? Because we're really looking for a conceptual consensus with you guys. So you don't want to go too early, but still be respectful, right? Because this is a public forum. So I spoke with Pete. We had a great conversation. I asked him for his permission that to share with you guys that we had spoken, that his initial interest was, he was very enthusiastic about the rail house. He wanted to talk about that, and he is a second generation owner, as was referenced earlier, and I think he would enjoy the opportunity to have a clean slate or a fresh start in a new space. He really had was kind of overflowing with ideas, not the least of which being ice cream. And I think the new space represents a really interesting new chapter for him. And so we talked at length about that. We have also spoken with the owners of the corner grocery. Well, excuse me. We actually, David Massey and I, after our site walk yesterday, just stepped into the store to see if we could catch the owner. And we were not able to, but David left his business card so that gentleman can actually call him on his cell phone when he gets that message. But we intend to work with them to find the right spot for them. As you know, and we discussed this a little yesterday, we just have to be careful not to violate any exclusivities with our commercial anchor tenant. So, but beyond that, we're in conversations. Yes.
Great. That's really all the questions I have. As I said, I'm impressed in terms of with all that you've done in terms of where we've come from, what we saw in May, and I'm and really addressing a lot of the concerns I had in terms of definitely bringing it closer to the closer to the rail trail and incorporating the freight house. I think that's all really positive. So thank you.
Thank you, Tori.
I also really appreciate the process that you've taken with us and the degree to which you've modified the plan in response to our comments last time. I think the addition of 11 Hobart and the new shape of the park is a big improvement, and also the plans for the freight house. Overall, I like the design. I like the concept. I'm not a big fan of the pickup window, but I recognize that it may be necessary. And thinking about it in terms of some of the other pickup windows in town, may not be that big a traffic generator. I think adding an additional retail unit in the larger building, as you've done, is a big improvement. I'd really like to see at least one more small retail unit, and something that would create an opportunity for a locally owned business, not necessarily a national chain. In keeping with the nature of the zoning overlay, but overall, I think what you're proposing is a massive improvement over what is there. and hopefully something that could seed a neighborhood that grows from that corner.
Great. Thanks, Tori. You know, a lot of the comments, I want to echo the same. I like this new plan. I think you guys have done an excellent job listening to what the community's sensitive to. And obviously the freight house use was a great idea. And being sensitive to some long-term commercial tenants that have a special place in a lot of the community's hearts in terms of you know, Betty Ann's, et cetera, the corner grocery, which have been around for a long, long time. So it's great to see that those conversations at least have started. So I encourage you to take the next step. You know, I'm excited to listen to, you know, what the facade and the architecture is going to look like. There's a lot of questions about, okay, this is going to be a significant piece redevelopment, probably the most important redevelopment project, 50, 75-year history of downtown Danvers. So how the architects, the facade, you know, ties into what's going on, you know, currently down on Maple Street and other redevelopment projects. It'd be interesting to see what that next step looks like. So I know this is not a public hearing, and obviously, you know, the public needs a lot of opportunities to weigh in at the appropriate time. But we do have one member of the board of select board on the line, Mr. Duggan. And Matt, I would welcome your input from this, you know, not only as a resident, but from your viewpoint as a member of the select board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sure, I have a few thoughts I'd like to share with you. And the first is, I was a town meeting member back in December of 17 when we town meeting approved this overlay, this 40R overlay. And there was a considerable amount of effort by town staff and by consultants to develop what I consider to be a kind of a roadmap or you know, some guidelines about what this intersection should look like. And I don't think this plan tonight, although it's definitely an improvement over what we saw previously, I still think it needs some work. And so let me just kind of go into a little bit more detail about what I'm thinking. The commercial aspect of this parcel, I think, should work to sort of draw. It should expand on the commercial areas further towards the square. And I don't really see it doing that. It seems more of a kind of a project that just kind of fell out of the sky. Almost what you would expect to see maybe out on Route 1 and not in a downtown kind of a environment. And specifically, I don't see the streetscape having kind of an inviting component to it in terms of what's there today. Although it's tired, it still has that kind of low slung look to it that's inviting. People pull up, they can walk in, get their hair cut, get a sub. I'm not really getting that feeling with this plan. And I think a lot of it has to do with that big L-shaped component in the back. You know, we were sold on having this kind of tiered approach, right? The first floor would be right on the sidewalk, your commercial type of interface, and then as you went up with residential on the second, third, and perhaps even the fourth floor, you'd have these setbacks. So the scale would be not this canyon effect that we would see on Rantoul Street in Beverly, but more kind of an inviting, kind of not overwhelming feel to it. This commercial component that's on the corner, I still think seems to not be inviting, right? The entrance on the last plan, it was on the inside corner. Really wasn't interacting with the intersection, and I think it's safe. Well, from my perspective, those two gas stations that are there out today at the intersection, I think that they're not long for this world. They just don't, I think, have a purpose going forward. One has already closed down, and I'm not sure what the plans are for it. I think the freight house that's been mentioned a few times, I think that's really just a distraction. I've been inside that. It's just a very small structure. And I'm also been involved with the rail trail for many years, being on the rail trail committee, and definitely see the advantageous aspect of that kind of tying into the trail. We always like to see more residential units along the trail. It's very sought after attribute. But again, I think that the L-shaped mass that's at the back of this project, I really think it should be distributed more evenly and brought forward. And then have the landscaping is important, but I think I'd rather see commercial, and then have maybe driveways into the parking areas. So those are just my thoughts. I'm not sure if anyone else shares that sense, but I appreciate the opportunity to share them with you tonight. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. David, from the staff, and again, we didn't design this as a public hearing, but was there anyone else that felt that they needed to give some feedback to the board and to the applicant at this phase of the process?
Sure, John. I think the only person that had actually reached out independently was Mark Goldstein. There's a few other folks here, but I'm not sure if they're looking to speak or not.
Okay, Mr. Goldstein.
Thank you, Mr. Fields, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me just quickly echo a couple of issues that we raised last time and echo Mr. Duggan's concerns. We greatly appreciate the changes that we've seen in the plan. It looks like a ton of work has already been done. The issue for us really is that none of those changes effectively change the corner retail use in any really appreciable way. And so they haven't addressed any of the concerns that we expressed in my May 25th letter that was sent on the day of the last informal meeting, as well as several of the comments from the public and other members of the planning board during that public proceeding. Attorney McCann acknowledged that the corner is not pedestrian friendly, that you have to move off the corner for it to become a pedestrian friendly area. The building in the corner remains 2 stories. It's too big. It still has a drive-through that is not pedestrian friendly and is not permitted. The entrances are still facing away from the corner entrance that is the entrance to the entire hot lot area. And frankly, it still appears to be designed to poach one of the existing downtown retail clients from the Danvers downtown area. And so while a lot of improvement has been made, there's still a lot of work to be done. We asked the planning board not accept this design of the retail building in particular and push for this most critical area that functions as the entryway to the entire hot lot redevelopment area, and push for it to be redesigned in a way that is closer to the goals of the MSTND district and more closely aligns with the design that I think everyone was thinking about when it was passed at town meeting. So thank you. We look forward to seeing further developments.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Could I ask a question? I didn't catch who Attorney Goldstein represents.
Yeah, I was going to ask that same question.
Yeah, we're not disclosing yet who we represent, but we represent a number of property owners in the downtown area.
Okay, but I'll have to tell you, Mr. Goldstein, that creates a challenge for us. Okay, at some point you're gonna have to talk to your client to be disclosed, because it's really important to understand if there's a if there's a different interest that's trying to be prevented from going forward.
Understood, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. We appreciate that.
Okay. David, anyone else from the public that your office has heard from that it's important for the board to hear some feedback on?
Not specifically, no.
Okay. So I guess I'll turn it back to you, Attorney McCann, in the applicant. Have you gotten the feedback that you were seeking tonight?
I think we have. We certainly appreciate the comments from the board members and the understanding of an acknowledgement that we've heard the comments that were made, and we've really been trying to address those, and we think we have very successfully. I've heard from a couple of folks on the board did mention specifically the pickup window, and what I am hearing is that while there may be a certain type of permitting that we have to do for that pickup window, that I am not hearing that is causing great concern for the board members, as long as we meet with staff and go through the process that's appropriate for that process. And is that correct? Can I get a feel from the board? Because the pickup window is an important component, as we have always represented.
At least from my perspective, I understand, why that tenant's going to be looking for that in today's environment. So from where, as one person, that does not bother me. Obviously, the what I have to understand is who has the authority to grant that permit, right?
Right. And that's what we're working with staff on, whether it's a variance, whether it's a special permit under the 40R. We're going to get to that and nail that down in the very near future. But as far as just from the component itself being a pickup window as we have represented, which is no menu board, no ordering, everything's done in advance, and it is pickup. That is not an issue that is going to cause great concern. And of course, with a traffic report that supports the layout and all of that is in place.
Correct. I mean, any member of the board want to correct that perception? We recognize this economic drive is to make projects like this succeed. So I guess Lou, Tori, you guys have, I just don't want to put words in your mouth. I mean, I understand it's not the most ideal situation, but we recognize what the applicant's trying to accomplish. And, there's a major next step that they have to take. And I think now is if there's going to be a showstopper around that pickup window, I think we owe it to them to give them some feedback.
Yeah, I recognize the need for a pickup window, and it wouldn't be a showstopper for me from what I've seen today if it's as it was presented today. I think we may be seeing more pickup windows in a lot of businesses now.
I would agree. I don't see it as a deal breaker either, in terms of particularly as it's presented. That's pickup. It's not it's not like a drive-through window of a store. So I understand the realities as well. So I think that would not be a deal breaker to me. The only things I would say is, and it seems like the Attorney McCann is certainly working on making sure that any traffic considerations or pedestrian safety considerations are taken into account. But so again, it would not be a deal breaker to me either.
Okay.
I'm fine with it. It's not a Dunkin' Donuts drive-through window or McDonald's drive-through window. For a long time, I didn't understand the concept of these drive-through windows at these types of stores, but I know that when my children were little, I could just leave them in the car. If I did it now, they were sick and we just came from the doctor and I was picking up a prescription. If I did it now, I'd be in jail. So I understand the concept and the need for this type of window.
Jim, do you have any concerns?
No.
Okay. So obviously, there's a lot more in front of us, right? There's really no formal application. There's a lot more work. There's more public involvement. So I'm hoping, that this helps the applicant and their team understand, where we're at fundamentally. But we got a long road to go, right? So.
Yes, and certainly the development team has a long road ahead to get the plans in shape for a formal filing, which is definitely our next step after we have our meeting with planning staff. So thank you. I want to thank you on behalf of the development team for your time yesterday on the site walk, as well as for your time tonight, as well as the first informal meeting that we had. It's very helpful. We understand that this is an important project. It is for us and it is for you, and we appreciate your time very much, and your input is invaluable. So thank you very much, and we appreciate it.
Okay, you're welcome. Any other matters, David, for the board tonight?
Nothing else, but for the fact that we were going to take one meeting off in August, and now it looks like we have two.
Excellent.
So we'll see you in September.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate all the good help, and stay safe.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good night. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Shut down.